from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. Welcome, CoCo Cruisers, to episode 55 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. I am, of course, John Linville, here joined for our end-of-year celebration by hello, Neil Blanchard.
Hello.
And hello, Mike Rowan.
Hello, everybody.
So, Boise and Ron have been called to other duties, and so won't be joining us for at least for the main part of this podcast. Let's see, it's toward, well, right now kind of the middle, but toward the end of December. We got CoCo Fest coming up in, let's say, about 4 months. Tandy Assembly is maybe about 10 months. Those are two pretty good times to release new CoCo products or start new CoCo projects or unveil them or whatever. So mark those on your calendar, make your travel preparations, and be prepared. Aside from that, what's going on? Who's got a project or anything worth talking about?
I'm going to be working on developing a new game, doing the production for it, for Evan Wright.
Oh, yeah?
It's a 3D Monster Maze game.
Nice.
It'll be coming up early in the new year. Should have it ready for the fest.
Cool. That sounds exciting.
Very cool.
Something to look forward to. How about you, Mike? What are you up to?
Oh, nothing major. I got a few odds and ends out of storage that I've been tinkering with. I'm planning to tinker with some machine code while I'm away at Christmas time.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
That should be fun. I guess the biggest thing I've been working on, or most interesting thing, at least recently, if anyone remembers, actually this is even before the podcast, back around 2014, maybe it's before, it's about the same time as the podcast started, I guess. I built a kit for the Microchroma 68, which was a kind of a developer board for really for the 6847 video display generator. The processor on that was a Motorola 6808, which is essentially a 6800. Managed to get a new in the box or as new or whatever kit from a member of the community, John Dumas, who was actually the author of the firmware. Built that Microchroma 68 board, did some blogging about it for Retro Challenge. Anyway, recently I found out that someone had added the Microchroma 68 support to MAME, which was kind of got me a little bit reinvigorated in my interest to see some other people working with that board, and taking some time to figure out how to convert binary images, like code images, over to audio files to be played into the cassette port, which can also be used to load code on the emulator and theoretically in real life. And so I've worked through that, and I can load the programs that I used for Retro Challenge all those years ago. I can load them over the cassette port now, or at least on the emulator. So a very long-winded description, perhaps, but I was having fun with an emulated Motorola development board, so pretty cool stuff. Get the nuclear green in the background. It's almost like we're using a CoCo.
Nice. Very cool.
All right. Well, with all that excitement, how about any eBay acquisitions or anything like that going on?
I did. I bought myself a Christmas present.
Well, what's that?
I got a Tandy Sensation, first generation complete.
Oh, wow.
Lusting over one of those for a while, so.
Cool.
That's great. Did you get it yet?
It's on the way. It's coming, so.
Canada Post, we understand.
Yes, maybe I'll have it next year. No.
In time for CoCo Fest.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to emulate the CoCo on it. It has enough power. I should be able to do some emulation on there. So it's not quite a CoCo, but I'll get CoCo software running on
it. Very exciting. What about you, Mike? Any cool acquisitions?
No, not this month. I've been doing a lot of looking, but just haven't found anything that caught my eye this month.
Yeah, no, I can get that. This has been kind of a on month, and even for me, been buying some several things that have been kind of cool or whatever. Probably the most interesting one was a lot of software, which contained some original diskettes and some original cassette tapes, original software. That was a kind of a cool find, and I got that in place and fondled through the likes of Donkey King and Lunar Rover and
wow,
Black Swans and a couple of others. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
The end of the year, as I've probably told many people in the past, I usually end up with some time off at the end of the year, and I've hit my time off window, so I'm hoping to get some playtime on between now and 2020, and hopefully that'll be a good time.
Well, that's good.
Very cool.
That probably covers sort of the introduction, so why don't we cut for a little break, and then we'll be back with our announcements.
Hey, I'm Howie Long. It wasn't too long ago that I was actually in your shoes, trying to decide if Radio Shack was the kind of company I wanted to be associated with. And what I found was a great group of people who work hard, love to compete, and are totally dedicated to serving their customers. I've been a member of several great teams on and off the football field, and this team works together like the best of them. See if you have what it takes to be a winning member of the Radio Shack team.
Ho, ho, ho! CoCo Christmas! CoCo Christmas! CoCo Christmas! CoCo Christmas!
Okay, welcome back. Now it's time for some announcements. You are, of course, listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are available on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @CoCo Crew Podcast. That's @CoCoCrewPodcast. If you are prone to sending tweets, please feel free to tweet at us with news and information or announcing your latest project or asking questions or whatever. We might even tweet back. It's a good way to interact with the community, so feel free to take advantage of it. We are available on Facebook. We have a group, the CoCo Crew Podcast, 4 separate words. If you are on the Book of Faces, come and check us out. We have around, 300 members or something. We'd love to have more. Join up. Maybe you'll get some announcements about the show or relevant to the show or fandom or whatever. Get the news there first before some of the other groups. We are a podcast. So, of course, we are available on iTunes, which I guess is also Apple Music now. We are available on Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, and then, of course, we're available for streaming through Spotify, on Stitcher, and through TuneIn. And TuneIn, of course, is the service used by Alexa. So if you like and you're wondering what we're up to, you can say, Alexa, play CoCo Crew Podcast. And, you should hear us soon. For some time, we've been taking our audio podcasts every month and doing a mechanical conversion on them over to videos that we have been uploading to YouTube. So you can check us out if you prefer using YouTube for consuming your media, or especially if you would like to have subtitles available, help make out the strange and wonderful accents. Hello, Neil. You may find YouTube as a viable option for consuming the podcast. So check us out, and we do have a playlist, and you might find some other information there too. CoCo Crew Podcast is a member of the Throwback Network. This is a list of similarly themed retro-oriented podcasts. Retro in this case mostly meaning relevant to general 80s culture, including technology, old video games, that sort of thing, but also a few other things, holiday specials and Greatest American Hero, and a few other things that might tickle your fancy if you have some nostalgia for the 80s. So if you're done listening to the CoCo Crew podcast and looking for other listening options, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. Also, we are listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This also is a list of similarly themed podcasts, in this case all relevant to video games and or home computer systems from mostly the 80s, probably some of the 70s and 90s as well. If you're done listening to the CoCo Crew podcast and still looking for other listening options, then we also recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. On the internet, audio for the CoCo Crew podcast is hosted by CyberEars. If you have a need to host audio on the internet for your business or for your church or for public meetings or whatever else you've got, then we recommend that you check out CyberEars, where you will get your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out and talk to the host of the CoCo Crew podcast via email, then we have a few addresses set up. If you want to reach all the hosts, then you can try one of these three email addresses. We've got show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's CoCoCrew.org. Also have podcast at CoCoCrew.org, PODCAST, and feedback, FEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. And all three of those addresses will reach all the hosts of the show. If you want to reach out to any of us individually, then I'm available as John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org. Neil is available as Neil, Neil. Mike is available as Mike, Mike. Boise is available as, of course, Boise, BOISY. And Ron is available as, well, Ron, RON, all at CoCoCrew.org. So if you have something to say via email, please do feel to reach out. Tip us off about your latest project or news or information. Send us questions about the show, suggestions about things, whatever you like. All right, those are our standard announcements. At this point, we'd typically like to cover some of the events happening in real life that we think might be of interest to our listeners. Coming up March 21st and 22nd of 2020, we have the Vintage Computer Festival Pacific Northwest held at the Living Computer Museum and Labs in Seattle, Washington. Looks like a cool event. Haven't been out there. Most VCF events are pretty cool, and it certainly looks like a cool venue. So if you are in the Pacific Northwest part of the United States, then we recommend that you check out VCF Pacific Northwest, March 21st and 22nd of 2020. Moving on, April 3rd through 5th, 2020, Midwest Gaming Classic will be held at the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Looks like a gaming-heavy event, but it's the right kind of games. Go and check it out. Gotten good reviews from Ron Klein. If you are in the northern part of the Midwest, we recommend that you make your way up to Milwaukee and check it out. Should be a good time. April 18th and 19th of 2020. This, of course, will be the 29th annual last Chicago CoCo Fest. CoCo Fest, of course, is the big event that kind of kicked off this podcast and established the friendships that led to this group of hosts. It's a big event that I think we've all experienced for a number of years and enjoy. We're hoping that continues. This, of course, the venue is changing this year. They're moving out to Elk Grove Village, so they'll be at the Holiday Inn, Elk Grove Village, Illinois. The venue was, above ground, or at least at ground level, so you won't have to ride the elevator of death into the basement.
No chance of getting stuck.
Yeah, it'd be a nice open venue, open for a good time. April 24th through 26th. That's 3 days. I think they're still doing their Friday technical day. This, of course, will be Vintage Computer Festival East. This is VCF held in Wall, New Jersey at the Info Age Science Center. Cool event, historic location, nice bunch of guys. if you're in that part of the United States, the eastern seaboard, shall we say, or up in and around New York City, for example, then definitely figure out how to get there. And it's a good event to experience lots of retro stuff. Mark it on your calendars, VCF East, April 24th through 26th, 2020. For the Apple II guys out there, your week of Apple II hedonism coming up July 21st through the 26th of 2020. This, of course, will be Kansas Fest 2020, being held at Rockhurst University in Kansas City, Missouri. A good time will be had by all, particularly if it's somebody who likes Apple IIs. It's a good group of people. Little, they like the Apple IIs, but they talk other stuff too. And if you talk Apple II as well, you'll probably have a good time. Highly recommended. And of course, the big event now scheduled October 30th through November 1st of 2020, Tandy Assembly, which I assume that's still in Springfield, Ohio.
Yes.
So a nice little town, nice venue, lots of nice Tandy people. We're hoping, of course, to see a nice big event this year. It's been growing. Has it been growing every year? Certainly not shrinking. Doing well so far, and this was his third year, and this coming up will be his fourth year. I'm sure it's going to be a great time. Once we get past CoCo Fest, this will be the big thing for the end of the year. Very exciting stuff. Okay, well, that's the last event we've got on the calendar for now. Take a little break. We'll come back for the show.
Introducing the amazing cartridge vacuum by ROMCO, the new color computer accessory that protects all of your cartridges. Simply insert your cartridge into the cartridge vacuum. Turn it on and it starts automatically, sweeping and vacuuming your cartridge instantly, loosening deep, damaging micro dust particles. Game cartridges, disc controllers, modem packs, any size fits. It makes a great Christmas gift, and it's only $13.24.
Available at Walgreens, Shoppers Drug Mart, Woolco Woolworth, Family Drug Centers, Osco Drug, Canadian Tire, McDonald's, Piggly Wiggly, Montgomery Ward, Sears Roebuck, Village Pantry, Burger King, Sandy's, Duane Reade, Kate Spade, The Church of Scientology, Five Guys, Baby Gap, Swizzles, 7-Eleven, Albertsons, participating Exxon stations, Beauregard's, Mama's Fried Chicken, ABC Liquors, Moon Pie General Stores, Whole Foods, Taco John's, Sherwin-Williams, and Goldblatt's.
If you're bored at Christmas time, please enjoy this chipmunk rhyme. We kindly suggest to you, listen to the CoCo Crew. John will keep us up to date. Neil reviews the games of late. Lots of info you can use. It's the CoCo Crew.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for some news. A post kind of came out of the blue from Antonio Carlos Jimenez Eli. E-L-Y, I'm not sure. I'm guessing from the rest of his names that it's and because of the reference to Costa Rica that it should be a Spanish pronunciation. And I have no idea how you pronounce E-L-Y in Spanish. What the pronunciation would be. So, Antonio, I'm going to say Eli, and if I'm screwing that up, then please write in and let me know the proper pronunciation. So he posts a picture of basically the innards of an old style desk phone. It's actually a rotary phone, and that says that 35 years ago his father had a deal with a company out of Tampa, Florida, refurbished phones in Costa Rica, and where they were living at the time. So I guess they'd get all these old phones dropped to them, and they'd need some way to test it. He figured out a way to wire up some kind of circuit between the phones they're testing and the joystick ports on his CoCo. I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
So,
yeah, for sure.
There's definitely some. It's a cool way to get, especially an analog input and even a couple of digital inputs into the CoCo. I thought it was at least a nifty way to show how you can get inventive with some stuff on the CoCo. So, very cool. Well, thank you, Antonio. All right, moving on. The next item, this comes from Sheldon MacDonald. So Sheldon publishes a lot of stuff. He's trying to vie to become another superstar. We might have to get him his own little bell or something to ring. Anyway, so he's got kind of a cool idea. He's got what he calls a Y adapter. This is for joysticks. What he's got is a cable where you could plug one end, would accept a 2-button joystick, like for a CoCo 3. The other end would have 2 joystick plugs to go into a CoCo 1 or 2. And so it basically would route the second button from the CoCo 3 compatible controller over to the other joystick port. And so that way you could use it with the proper software. You could use a 2-button controller on a CoCo 1 or 2. So it's kind of a neat thing. Should be a fairly affordable solution just to have these cables. We'll see if anybody takes advantage of it. But it's a cool idea. Of course, it makes it a little difficult for 2-player games. But realistically, I mean, how many of us are overrun with people trying to play games with us on our CoCo anyway? So it's a pretty cool idea. And like I said, it's just it's practical, and it's not very expensive, and it shouldn't be hard to build, and doesn't require a big 3D printed enclosure. So it's a pretty cool idea. Good thinking, Sheldon. I'd like to see it. It's good to see you being so active with some cool ideas. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that is a cool one.
Speaking of unique ideas in the community, here's one that I would not have predicted to see. So we've got Henry Rietveld. And I guess there's somebody out there basically lets you plug an 8-inch floppy drive into a place that was really designed for a 5 1/4-inch floppy drive. So it, does all the wiring, mapping or whatever. And so I guess that's what he's got is one of these that he's then used to hook electrically, an 8-inch floppy drive up to his Tandy color computer controller. It doesn't seem like it works 100%. I think he complained about some problems with directories or whatever. But it seems like it works kind of well enough, or just well enough at least, that he's able to load an image of Canyon Climber and then be able to play that on his color computers. And so he's loading games off of his 8-inch floppy, which, if nothing else, is kind of nerd cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. A 35-track 8-inch floppy disk, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The
tracks are so big you can see them.
Yeah, no doubt.
And what else is kind of cool about it is he's using a game that was originally on a ROM pack.
Yeah. So he's all kinds of mixing up the media. So practical, no, I can't give you huge points for that. But inventive or cool that it works at all, yeah, definitely a big plus there. Thanks for sharing, fun. Henry. Definitely fun to see that. If you figure out how to get full functionality, all of that, I'd love to see more. So moving on. So this is from someone, I couldn't figure out the name of this person. They seem to go by the nom de guerre, leaded solder. So, sorry, I've gotten to where I only look so hard for names for people that want to use their aliases. Some people want to use them just because they think they're cool, and some people use them for actual anonymity or whatever. I don't know. I want to give credit where credit is due, but when you make it hard for me, I can only do so much. So anyway, Leaded Solder. And he says, he posts a literal trash 80. We'll avoid the nitpicking over whether or not Trash 80 really referred to all TRS-80s or just the Z80 ones. In this case, he's got a TRS-80 Model 1. It's got one with a nicer keyboard. It's got one of the raised full-stroke CoCo 2 keyboards. Kind of weird looking. It's got a RAM badge upgrade, but it's down to the left by the keyboard. I don't know. Somebody done a little work there, but this poor keyboard apparently made its master unhappy at some point. It got chucked, and the case is kind of busted up, and there's holes drilled in it, and it's dirty, and there's things broken, and whatever. I don't know. Pretty lengthy blog post about how he goes through and does some of the cosmetic stuff, and then some of the electronics or related repairs. He does seem to get it working. I think he has a keyboard problem, but hopefully he's continued on, got the keyboard straightened out, and is now a happy coker. But I thought some people might appreciate seeing this coverage, and nice to know that somebody will love even a stray CoCo enough to try to nurse it back to health. Thank you, Mr. Salter. Or is that just leaded? Anyway. Okay, moving on. The next one comes from Chet Simpson. Chet kind of burst back onto the CoCo scene roughly a year ago with his interesting animations that were perhaps a little less than respectful to certain old-timers in the community. But anyway, he seems to have gotten past that little social faux pas because the group that was most offended at the time seems to have accepted him in now as one of their own.
Yeah.
But in this case, he says, one more attempt with some slight changes to the instruments and some additional notes on channel 2. And so what this is, I think last month we had a link to an earlier version of a player he had for playing music on a Game Master cartridge. And so this is an enhanced or extended version of it. I don't know. I just, if anybody wants to use a Game Master cartridge or something, I'll try to cover it because I like it. So that's kind of what this is. So give it a listen, see what you think. And,
it does sound better.
It does.
He's making improvements on it, yeah.
Very good. All right, thanks, Chet. All right. Okay, now this one. So this is on twitch.tv. Not real familiar with. Something kind of like YouTube, maybe a bit different in other ways. Anyway, this is person Whoop Von Whoop. Posts a video, says the Radio Shack TRS-80 Tandy Color Computer is the best game console, better than your PlayStations and Xboxes. So, provocative. I give points for that. Of course,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, Whoop Van Whoop goes through and plays like Dino Wars and a couple other stuff. Don't know much about Whoop. I'm glad to see you enjoying your CoCo, and welcome to the community, and I'm glad you're bringing people in, and I hope you're having fun and making good choices.
A big gamer.
Definitely. Hopefully, Twitch.tv is now a big CoCo hotbed based on Whoop's efforts, and if so, I'd love to see more.
Well, our next one is from Deckle. It's Rick Koenig's Intellivision debugger. Well, I'm sure you'll be able to talk to this more, John, but sounds like he's pulled a debugger that was included on a game cartridge. It was on the ROM, and he's pulled it off and made it available. Kind of a cool story there.
So pretty neat little story of Indiana Jones style sleuthery or whatever. Somehow it came out that one of these old released game cartridges actually had this, not just some debugging code in it, but an actual full-blown debugger that actually shipped with the game. And so this person figured out how to activate the debugger and then kind of how to use it and how to make use of it, and even how to build it back into your own games, which I don't know if you actually can legally do that, but I guess in your own time or in your own private stuff, you can probably do whatever and get away with it. But I thought it was pretty neat. If nothing else, it's kind of neat to show how you might implement a debugger on a system, on a game system where you're only going to interact with it, with a graphic screen and pretty simple controls. How you might trigger it and how you might step through code and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I thought it was kind of neat. And so the combination of the Indiana Jones story and just showing the possibilities of the technology, I thought it was cool, and somebody might get a kick out of it.
Yeah, cool story. All right, we got another cool one here. This next one is from Matthew Keel. Intellivision Inti Basic Prince of Persia development update. And this is developing Prince of Persia, which if you're familiar with, it has really realistic animation because the author filmed his brother actually doing these things, and then they took the film and transferred that to bitmaps on the game. And this is on the Intellivision. It's really impressive.
Yeah. Whatever the differences between the Intellivision and other systems or whatever, none of them help the Intellivision do this. I guess is kind of why I included this. And so it's sort of like, if you can do this on the Intellivision, then why the heck can't you get this going on a CoCo 3 or even a CoCo 2? So it's meant to be inspirational. I'm not going to do it, but I sure hope that somebody else does.
Yeah, it definitely gives you hope for lesser systems. That's pretty amazing.
Definitely.
All right, our next one is another one from Sheldon MacDonald. It's a new GMC cartridge with audio out jack and a rebuilt stronger insert. So this is a 3D design he's got out there for a new GMC cartridge case that allows the audio out jack that he uses. It looks nice. It looks pretty industrial.
Yeah. This is not the way I intended the GMC card to be used. That's fine. He can do it, and if it works for him, that's great. But if you do have the external cartridge or external audio port, it's nice to have some support in the plastic for actually holding the plug, and that's what he's showing. So yeah, it's cool. He's got that working, and he's got able to build cases to do the like I said, to hold the audio out jack. Kind of cool.
Yeah. Next one is Hacker News at Y Combinator, a memo on the secret features of the Hitachi 6309 processor from 1992. It's an interesting conversation talking about, well, why would manufacturers put these secret features in their chips anyway?
Yeah, well, I mean, I figure it's always useful to have references to the wisdom of the internet. But it's basically just, this is how we learned about the 6309 20, 30 years ago. The story just bounced up to Y Combinator or Hacker News or whatever it is. They just saw it, and this is how they reacted to it, whatever. And, if you're not familiar with the story, it might be cool to review it. If you are familiar with it, it might be cool to see how other people have perceived it. Anyway, you can't have a story on the 6309 and not get some coverage.
Exactly. Okay, another cool one here. This is from Hey Bert at YouTube. This is a video about the Arduino TI L31 tester. This is kind of cool on multiple levels, but the TI L31 is it's a 7-segment display, but it has an integrated decoder, so you can just basically put a 4-bit value in, and it will display the hex value correctly on the 7-segment display. So he's wired it up to an Arduino to test out, basically to exercise these and burn them in. So he had several of these to plug in. And it's just a good all-around application of using a microcontroller. You could certainly do this with a CoCo, too, if you had it wired up.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's why it's here for both of those variations. Is if you do want to build something for the CoCo with different or weird or components, and there's one option for testing them is you could get an Arduino. It's pretty easy to wire stuff up, and once you hooked it to an Arduino, it's pretty easy to go through the code and test and development sort of cycle, the load new code, whatever. And then on the opposite side, if you wanted to test components using a CoCo, not too hard to build something for that. Nothing else, you can use one of those proto boards that I posted pictures of this week, and Mike and or Neil usually have available. Add a couple of sockets and add a socket and some other decoding logic to one of those, and you'd be using your CoCo to do this kind of testing. So very cool.
Okay, our next one is from Pete Satinsky. It's the TRS-80 Color Computer Top 10. This is kind of fun. Pete's been going back in time to find out what were the big sellers at Radio Shack and Tandy, and he's been posting them for these color computer games, so cartridges and software in general. So it's kind of fun to see how it changes, from month to month. What was the big seller?
Yeah, and with the picture he posted, I don't see anything to identify which month or even which year that is.
Yeah,
I'll probably take a guess on it based on which things are on there. But it was kind of cool just from what sort of things were people buying. I'm kind of surprised that, there's not that many games on the list, and even the ones that are on the list, kind of the gamier they are, the lower on the list they are. I would think a kid going to Radio Shack and picking out a game would be far more likely to pick out Megabug than Demolition Derby or baseball, and certainly than Personal Finance 2 or Color Scripts did. And so, but still, I guess this reflects who was actually spending the money at Radio Shack back in those days.
Yeah,
kind of neat.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get everybody's Christmas gifts at the same place? Well, maybe you can. I'll let you in on a little secret. The Holiday Gift Center at Radio Shack. After all, everyone loves electronics. And who has more favorites than Radio Shack? Calculators, radios, personal stereos, computer accessories. Oh, plus all kinds of handheld electronic games for the kids. So take care of everybody on your list. Make it a Radio Shack holiday.
Are you only using one side of your disk drives? Well, partner, it's time for you to reach for your 6 drive. 6 drive is a machine language routine that modifies disk extended color basic to allow you to treat each side of your disk drives as independent disks. 6 drive supports up to 3 double-sided disk drives, turning them into 6 independent disk drives. Best of all, 6 drive doesn't require any modifications to your color computer or your disk drives. So what are you waiting for? Holster you a copy of 6 drive today. 6 drive from GimmeSoft.
All right, got a really cool one here to start off my section here. It's from Dave Phillipson, CoCo Dev Development Board. Dave is working on making a CoCo development board. That's pretty much CoCo, roughly CoCo compatible, he says. It runs disk extended color basic and has an 80-column display with VGA output. And it's got 512K RAM, MMU, and yes, it does have a real-time clock. And SD card, Wi-Fi, the whole kitchen sink. Looks pretty cool here. I hope this comes to fruition. There's some videos here he has posted that shows it running, which is kind of neat.
It is neat.
Yeah, pretty cool. Check it out. I like it in the notion that it is, it's not quite a CoCo, but it, obviously it is running extended color basic. Got some extras to it, but it's not, oh my God, throw everything at it. It's not, he didn't put an ARM processor on it or
right,
right,
or a big honking super VGA or HDMI output or whatever. He kind of respected some of the limitations or whatever. I don't know. It seemed like a cool idea. So could be fun to play with if it was available. Maybe it will be.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, our next news article is from Dave Dunfield. This was actually kind of sad. He posted here he's selling a whole pile of classic equipment. It's available, I guess, because of the turn of his health. I mean, it's pretty sad that he has to sell all the stuff off. But it was quite extensive, this list here. I went over it briefly. I don't know if you guys did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, poor Dave. So if you don't know Dave, I don't think I've ever actually met him, but he is kind of a well-known retro hobbyist from way back. Probably was doing retro stuff before it was actually retro. He may have never really stopped. He just kind of did the same stuff. It just became retro. But, he used to be kind of semi-famous for offering a collection of development tools, C compilers and assemblers and monitors for a variety of processors. You can still get them from a few places, I think, but he hasn't been selling them for a while. He used to have some of the stuff up available you could download at least some samples of them. Your mileage may vary on that nowadays. I did use his C compiler for the 6809 for a retro challenge project back in the day. Maybe if I think about it, I'll put a link in the show notes for that. But yeah, it's pretty cool that he has some cool stuff available. He used to have a lot of nifty downloads on there, including a monitor program for the 6809 that I made use of in I have the serial port, the Bluetooth over serial, or serial over Bluetooth, the development card that I'd gotten from Roger Taylor that I took out his ROM and put in the monitor ROM from Dave Dunfield. And I use that for developing code on the CoCo. It's a pretty nice solution. Anyway, but poor Dave has had a hard year. I think he has some injuries and some health issues, and so take a look if you're interested to read his letter about what's happened. And I don't know if you can help him out, or maybe you want to buy his equipment, whatever, consider doing so.
All right, our next news article is from Graham Toll. The title is A Plug Experiment. Now, unfortunately, this link does not work for me, so I'm sure maybe you can fill everybody in, John.
Yeah, well, you have to belong to the Vectrex Fans Unite group on Facebook.
I couldn't get through either.
So you may not be aware, on the Vectrex, which we talk about some, 6809 system with the vector monitor built in, the controllers on the Vectrex, they're actually somewhat similar to the CoCo style of controllers in that they're analog, but they plug in with a 9-pin plug, so similar to what, say, an Atari controller would use plug-wise, although the adapter, the joysticks themselves are completely different. But one thing that's a little weird about them is the plugs themselves, where the receptacle for the plug is kind of got a weird shape to it. The net of it being, if you use like an extension cable for an Atari-style joystick, electrically it should work, but physically it doesn't plug in. This causes a little problem in that people want to build, they want to build controllers or they want to build extender cables or whatever, and you can't get plugs for them, right? Well, so he's got his plug experiment. He says, I took a Sega plug, made a mold using Instamorph, which apparently is a low melting point moldable hard plastic. Basically, he was able to create a plug housing that would work with Vectrex. So I thought it was neat from the arts and crafts aspect of it. Might be inspirational to somebody who has a need to do something similar, whether it be, could be for the Vectrex or it could be for whatever other reason you have. But it's good to know how to get your hands dirty and messy and goopy and do some of this stuff. So, check it out. Like I said, you have to join the Vectrex Fans Unite group on Facebook, I guess, to look at the link. But worth checking out.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, the Vectrex is neat.
Yeah.
All right, our next news article is from Brett Gordon, who was actually on the show a while back. We interviewed him.
Yeah.
He posts how to mod an MPI for gamed interrupts.
When you do one of the software switches of slots, actually, anytime you switch slots on the MPI to change which is active, which cartridge is active, I guess the interrupt line is also switched. And so if you're using something like OS 9 and you have a serial card in one slot and your disk controller in a different slot, and you want to be able to do a serial transfer in the background, if it switches away to do something that uses the floppy controller, your UART tries to give an interrupt, it's going to get missed. It doesn't go anywhere. So this is an old style hack that people came up with back in the day, which basically tied all the interrupt lines from all the slots together. And I guess then OS 9 in particular could go and figure that out and figure out which interrupt actually did fire. So kind of cool. It looks like there is a little caveat. If you do that, then you need to also cut all but one of the pull-ups, or else you could, when you put all the pull-ups in parallel, you're going to decrease the effective resistance, which is going to increase the amount of current in the pull-up and or being, that's being pulled up is going to affect your power supply, something like that. Anyway, if you're not aware, you may want to consider, especially if you're an OS 9 or Nitrous 9 user, you might want to consider doing the same thing on your MPI. And if you do make the modification, be sure to take some attention to the pull-ups. So,
right.
Very
Makes
cool.
me wonder how many of these have been done, like from the past. Like I wonder if I don't think I've ever come across an MPIs that have been modded like this.
Yeah, well, you might take a closer look and see. You might not be aware of it. It's probably all hidden in the plastic.
Huh.
Normally wouldn't notice.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it seems like there are some newsletter articles that have covered this. Maybe not like in Rainbow, but in some of the, like.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah. So if you're looking for information on that, I would dig around on Color Computer Archive, for the more obscure newsletters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Now would this affect anything with RS-DOS? Like, does it? If you have this model, please.
Probably not, but I mean, I guess your mileage may vary. There could be something out there, but I wouldn't think it should matter. If you're using RS-DOS, it probably shouldn't be switching away the slot anyway from whatever's active. So
right.
It'd be effectively no difference. You'd be on the slot that you want to access that's firing the interrupt, which then be everybody else will see the interrupt too, but who cares? Only the CPU needs to see it. So
right. Yeah. Huh. That's very cool. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
All right, our next news article is from Paul Fiscarelli. He's releasing the source code for a game that I reviewed, I think about 3 months ago now, Dino Run.
Yeah.
Spent some time cleaning it up and tweaking the code, and it's now available to the public.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Nice to see people giving back. A lot of people have some really good things to say about that game, so if nothing else, it's some way to distract yourself, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Our next news article is from, again, another one from Graham Toll, which I cannot open because I am not a member.
Let's see. It says, since the FB won't allow me to upload this file, jokingly, probably because of the 6809 sign extend mnemonic, which of course is SEX. I'm hosting a copy on my own website, which he has used a URL, but it is out to a file called 6502_to_6809.zip. It says, remember the old article on translating 6502 assembly code to 6809? Well, I finally found the actual macro files at the Flex user group in a disk image file. May be useful to someone someday. So a lot of us have probably seen this article floating around on basically having a program that translates 6502 assembly code or binary code, maybe even to 6809. It's basically a mechanical translation. Part of it involves macro calls for your assembler to do some of this. So basically, where one instruction gets replaced by multiple instructions. It's kind of the simplest way to explain that, of what a macro does. So you get a PDF of this and explains, the PDF is a few pages and explains kind of the mechanism or how they're going about the translation and whatever. But then the code examples then hit these macro calls that are missing from the paper. And so you kind of have to guess at what they do. And so if you actually wanted to use this program, having access to these macros that Graham seems to have found could be useful. So you may want to check it out. And again, in this case, you're going to have to join the Vectrix Fans Unite Facebook group.
You're going to have to join that one.
To be able to check out the links here. Sorry about that.
I like the Vectrix. You got me hooked on it, John. That was you.
It's a great little system.
They are cool.
So the next item comes from a Jerry Stratton. A little bit of an article with some explanation stuff here, but basically, I guess there's a utility in some of the issues of Rainbow where when you have basic listings, they print checksums. So basically, you could run the program that would check what you typed in and compute checksums for the lines. So that way you knew, at least if the checksum was off, that you had typed the line incorrectly. So when you have one of those big programs that you got to spend 4 days typing in on your chiclet keyboard, at least there's some way of, narrowing down where you made a mistake. Now, if the mistake was actually in the magazine print, well, then you you still got problems. So Jerry here has basically re-implemented that checking program in Perl, a more modern. Of course, Perl is pretty retro at this point, but a more modern scripting language. And so if you want to do these type-ins and then run the basic programs, on the emulator, or at least check them on your PC before loading them over to the actual hardware, however you might do that, he's got a way that you can, use this Perl script to do the checking for you, so that you don't have to load everything up on an actual CoCo to do it. So it should be somewhat more convenient. And, always good to see people putting a little time into writing things up. And I always like to see anyone learn how to put a little extra time into a Unix tool as well. So Very cool. I don't know. I still consider Perl a Unix tool, although it's so widely used, or at one time was so widely used, it may have lost some of its Unix association. But Unix is where it started, damn it.
You're here.
But,
I thought this was pretty cool too. I like it when they take, especially this. If you typed in a bunch of rainbow listings, you're familiar with RCheck, or the little check mark at the end of the listings. But the only problem I found with it is if you're off by a single character, you're off.
Oh yeah.
So if you omitted a space or put an extra space in, then it wasn't that helpful.
Yeah. Oh well. At least it's better than nothing. At least maybe not. In this case, at least it's cheap enough that it's probably better than nothing, rather than when you had to load it all on the CoCo and then run it. Then maybe it wasn't better than nothing.
Next to your computer, nothing beats a Tandy printer. Tandy printers make fine print quality, graphics, and high performance affordable. Like the versatile DMP 430. It can print 180 characters per second and up to 132 columns. Choose from micro, italic, and double high fonts. It's perfect for business and costs just $8.99. For the budget-minded, there's the DMP 105 at just $199. It's ideal for data processing and general use. And all of Tandy's DMP printers support high-quality bit image graphics. How about adding some color? The CGP 220 prints quiet text and graphics in yellow, violet, red, green, cyan, magenta, and black. Make your reports dazzle with color. The CGP 220 is just $5.99. See the complete selection of printers and accessories at your local Radio Shack and Radio Shack computer centers.
Is your finger worn out from pressing the joystick fire button? Then you don't know Jack. Jack, the joystick alternative controller. Attach Jack to your color computer joystick port, then connect any Atari-style joystick. Plus, Jack features a unique rapid-fire option. Save your fingers, save your wrists. Get Jack for just $22.50. And what about pausing that game? It's easy with Stop. Stop plugs into your CoCo's cartridge slot, multi-pack interface, or Y cable. Simply press the button to immediately halt your computer, and press it again to resume. Works with all software. Stop is just $14.95. Jack and Stop are both fine products from Vortex, Merrifield, Virginia.
Check and money order accepted. American funds only. Postage and handling not included in list price. Canadian orders add $4. Allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery.
All right, moving on. We have a post from Per Surratt, our Spanish dragon user. He's done a lot of cool stuff. And at least this post is not actually about AGD games, but instead is about took some games that Curtis Boyle has been doing some conversions of, particularly CoCo 1 and 2 games, and converting them so that they would take advantage of the native features of the 6309, which includes color car action, F-16 assault, Gantlet, Marble Maze, Russian assault, Touchstone. And so Per's taking some of this work and then expanding on it by making them also, instead of being just CoCo, making them into Dragon games, which I'm sure is very appreciated by any Dragon users out there, especially any Dragon users with 6309s. Very cool. It's good to see anything that expands the game library and anything that includes our Dragon brethren and our wealth of CoCo goodness. Definitely good to see that too.
Yep.
Very good pair. Thank you. The next group of links is also, of course, from Pear. And this one is back to the arcade game designer converted games. He's kind of back at it, and he released a Game Pack 38, 39, well, just those two, and then Big Pack version 2.6, which I guess the Big Pack includes all the work. So it says Big Pack is 219 games. Wow.
Wow.
So if you're looking for games to play on your CoCo or Dragon, there definitely are a lot of them. They may not be perfectly taking advantage of every feature of the CoCo or Dragon, since they are essentially Spectrum games being ported over, but still, that's a lot of stuff to work with. It should be a good way to spend an afternoon.
Certainly boosts the library.
Very cool. All right. Let's see. Moving on. So I've got it's actually 3 links for a 3-part article. The title of the article altogether, New Tricks for an Old Z Machine. They've got Part 1, Digging the Trenches, Part 2, Hacking Deeper, Part 3, A Renaissance is Nigh. So we've talked about the Z machines from time to time. This is the technology that Infocom used for publishing their text adventures like Zork, and particularly Zork, and the other stuff that they published back in the day. It had some text segments about how to hack the disk images from the released CoCo Infocom games and be able to swap out the actual game for a different game. We've talked about that many times here on this podcast. If you're not already overwhelmed or with Z Machine Infocom lore, Jimmy Mayer, who's kind of well known as a retro computing kind of historian and such, he's got this 3-part essay or whatever talking about the Z Machine and kind of how it got started and then how it got revived. How people have gotten back into doing more interactive fiction, whatever. Anyway, if you like playing the old style classic text adventure games, particularly if you want to do so on a CoCo or other machine, you may want to check out the series of articles and might at least, if nothing else, read them, right before bed, and it should give you 3 nights of good sleep, if nothing else, right? So, that's not a comment on Jimmy's writing. It's very good, but they are lengthy articles, so be prepared. Okay, the next one. This comes from Brendan Donahue. I think we had a similar announcement last month for release 0.91, and so this is now release 0.92 of the CoCo VGA FPGA code. So if you're a CoCo FPGA customer, you've got another update to pursue, and then there's also some new software, VGA editor/launcher. This is inspired by Nick Marti's CoCo 3 palette configuration game launcher. This was a similar idea where you can change the palettes and whatever before launching your game. It's just this one works with CoCo VGA instead of with the CoCo 3. Got some utilities for use with the CoCo VGA. If you're a customer, especially if you're programming something that wants to use a CoCo VGA, you should look into this updated set of support tools and, of course, the new firmware. Very cool. Good job, Brendan. All right, so here's a kind of a neat one. This is it's a video, Nezert Golfing, making an NES golf game. So why I've got NES stuff here? Well, I like to include news items from other systems, but in particular, the story is basically about somebody who he found this cell phone game, wanted to write a Nintendo game. So it kind of describes how he went through figuring out how to match the technologies together and what things to preserve, what things to throw out, that sort of stuff. I don't know. I found it interesting. I think mining the world of cell phone games was already been lucrative for the CoCo world in general. We had Timberman and Bouncy Ball. There's bound to be some others. I've got a couple in mind that I might want to do, and I'm not going to say them because I don't want other people to steal the ideas. But there certainly are ideas out there that, a lot of the cell phone games are simple enough graphic-wise that they're not too difficult to port to an 8-bit system. So it might be a good territory to mine. If you are going to go that direction, this is probably a good primer on what sort of thinking needs to go into how to make the adaptation. So check it out. And that video is from Brad Smith. Thank you, Brad.
Getting a little more festive here for the season. This one's from Jerry Young. This is for the MC10. I typed in a fireplace with animated fire from January 1985 issue of Family Computing. It works well on the MC10. This is really cool. And he's actually made a YouTube video. If you've seen these videos at this time of year where you can turn on a crackling fire on your television and it plays Christmas music. Well, he's done the same thing with this YouTube video. He's got like an hour or more, except you can watch the MC10 fireplace animation. It's got a hearth with some flickering candles and crackling fire. It's great that you can pop this in for the holidays and listen to the Christmas music and see the MC10 on your television. So well done. It's a fun one.
Nothing says Christmas like a YouTube video of an MC10, right?
That's right.
Hey, I wonder if he typed that in on the MC10 with that keyboard.
Oh, who knows?
Probably. That's cool. Dedication, too.
Yeah. Okay, this next one is from Ray Bellis. I'm the author of Using the 6809 emulator that I first released in about 1992.
You got a GitHub repository for this USIM. Might be interesting for some folks. If you are trying to learn 6809 or any assembly language, sometimes this kind of open simulator can be an easy way to kind of step through and see how the instructions work. So it's a good introduction to learning assembly language in particular. Will it be useful for you? I don't know. But I saw it, thought it might be useful to somebody, so check it out, let me know.
All right, this next one Neil has already alluded to. It's a 3D Monster Maze demo for the TRS-80 color computer from Evan Wright. This is kind of a walkthrough of an early version of the game that Evan is working on. It's a 3D maze game, and you've got to watch out for the monster.
The reviews was pretty good, the video he posted. It's coming along it's pretty much done. I was talking to Evan, he just wants to put a little more polish on it before the cartridge release.
This runs on a CoCo 1, 2, or 3, right?
It'll work on all of them.
Crisp graphics. Looks nice. All right, this next one is from Todd Wallace. It works. Game is technically functional. I believe this is on Facebook. But he's got a little video of a game he's developed, and he's used the software high-res routine so that you can get a more sensitive joystick without having to use the hardware high-res adapter. Kind of a slick little game.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool. I mean, sort of just a puzzle game or whatever. Not the big arcade challenge that some people will be looking for, but, cool way to pass the time. So, nice to see it.
All right, the next couple here are from Richard Kelly. The first one is NAER version 1.10, entitled Not Another Expressway Ripoff. So this is a game that Richard's been working on. He's releasing. Looks like it's kind of a space-themed game. So he's announcing that. Also, this next one is RetroRick's PGDM Submissions Pack.dsk. Richard's been releasing these monthly disc magazine, if you will. He was hoping to get a game in for this month, but he doesn't think he's going to make it by Christmas, so he's going ahead and releasing it without that game. I believe that's available for download.
Yep. Cool stuff.
Surprisingly lacking in this month, but still made it. Is our friend of the show, Jim Gary. It is Xmas 2019. This game is an MC10 game. You got to see this video. This game is going. You're Santa. You're flying along, and you have to deliver presents to the houses that you're flying over, and you must hit the chimney, which makes it very challenging. You can't just drop them and hit the house. You have to hit the chimney for those to get points as you fly along. So another great holiday game for your MC10.
Yeah. Only the aces from Desert Storm are able to actually play. It was video of people dropping bombs down chimneys back 20-some years ago now. But pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of our news segment. So why don't we take another little break, and then we'll be back with some feedback.
Welcome to Casino CoCo. All the thrills of being in Vegas right from the comfort of your own Tandy Color Computer 3. It's slots and cards from Microdeal. Slots and cards turns your CoCo 3 into a casino. If you like playing the slots, there's 5 different kinds to choose from. Single and multi-line play and even multi-coin. If cards are more of your thing, head over to the tables and try your hand at poker, blackjack, and keno. Each game has outstanding full-color graphics with smooth and realistic motion. Set your stakes and let Lady Luck do the rest. Will you break the bank, break even, or leave down to the felt? It's so much like being in Vegas, you'll be looking for the all-you-can-eat buffet. Bring the fun and excitement of Las Vegas to your Color Computer 3 with slots and cards from Microdeal. Looking for the best service, best selection, and best prices for your color computer shopping needs? CoCo Pro.
At CoCo Pro, we bring you the best value for your CoCo shopping dollar. We carry a wide variety of new hardware products at prices too low to advertise. Gently used hardware products with a full 30-day warranty, as well as something you won't find anywhere else. Gently used software at incredible savings, from 30 to 80% off retail value. Easy on your wallet, easy on the convenience. Our inventory changes daily and contains at least 120 of your favorite CoCo software titles at all times. All are legitimate copies with full documentation. There's only one place for the best service, the best selection, and the best prices. CoCo Pro.
All right, welcome back. Now we've got some listener feedback. The first feedback item comes from Ryan Winter. Let's see, he sent in some email. Subject was great discussions on cartridges and when does a CoCo not become a CoCo anymore. He kind of wrote us a book, which is great. It's good to have a lot of content and a lot of coverage and a good discussion. It's a little hard to distill down to the feedback items, so this will mostly just be a recognition. Thank you for sending in some feedback, Ryan. But my summary here was from Ryan, thanks for the work putting out your podcast and cheers for another year. So hopefully that covers the sentiment, and we appreciate hearing from you, Ryan. It's always good to hear from listeners, and if I miss some key point, then feel free to send another email reminding us.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. We enjoyed the letter very much.
Very cool. So then the other feedback item we've got this month, this comes from Brendan Dunhey. The quote I'm taking from it is, keep up the great work. I look forward to these every month. So that was awesome and good to hear. There was a little mix-up. Like I said, I think we announced last month the 0.91 of the CoCo VGA update release. The timing was such that I think that he had actually released the 0.92 before our last month's podcast came out, and so there's a little mix-up of whether or not we had missed the 0.92 or misannounced 0.91, even though 92 was out, which, we kind of did. 92 was probably out by the time we announced it, but when we recorded it, it was only 0.91. So we get these
propagation delay.
Yeah, that's right. We get these kind of mix-ups from sometimes. It's not really a mix-up, just like you said, propagation delay. We try to cover all the news. Sometimes I'm sure I miss some things once in a while, but more often it's going to be something like this where we just hadn't quite got to it yet. So, like I said, if you do think we missed a news item, do feel free to send a reminder, and hopefully we've already got it queued up. But if we did really miss something, send us a reminder and we'll try to get it in. Thank you, Brendan. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, that probably covers our feedback for this month. So we're going to take another little break, and we'll be back hopefully with a soulful and tear-jerking host discussion there. I don't know. Anyway, we'll be back with a host discussion.
Why is Molly smiling? Why is Bob smiling? Why are so many people smiling? It's simple. They switched to Telewriter 128. It's the #1 word processor for your Color Computer 3. It's easy to use, lightning-fast paging and scrolling, built-in help function, 26 user-definable macro keys, and of course, all of the features of Telewriter 64. If you're serious about writing, get a serious word processor. Telewriter 128, the Color Computer 3 word processor from Cognitech.
I think there must be something wrong with me, Linus. I have a CoCo 3, but I'm not happy. I don't feel the way I'm supposed to feel. I just don't understand computers, I guess. I like playing games and word processing and programming and all that, but I'm still not happy. I always end up feeling depressed. Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who can take a wonderful thing like a color computer and turn it into a problem. Maybe Lucy's right. Of all the Charlie Browns in the world, you're the Charlie Browniest.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. We have a little guest here. Little guest. We have a fully grown adult, a guest.
Big guest.
Aaron, he and his buddy, who goes by Boat, have been doing a CoCo-related gaming podcast for a couple of months now, I think. And I think they have some other podcasting exploits together as well. I thought it'd be a good time to have a chat and see what's going on and see, his relation to the CoCo community and all. So here we are. Hello, Aaron. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm just fine, thanks.
Good. So we're also here. We've got, of course, myself, John Linville, Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, and welcome, Aaron.
and of course, Boise Pete is also joining us. Hello, Boise.
Hey, guys. Thanks, Aaron, for being here.
Aaron is, so I know you and your pal have been doing some other podcasting. My understanding is you have a connection to the CoCo in the past, and you've been introducing it to your friend, Boat. Is that his real name, Boat?
That's not his real name. His real name's John.
Okay.
I'm horrible with names, as I'm sure you'll all realize very soon. And so I've got a bad habit of just picking up nicknames. And I don't know why. I think that was his online name or something, was Boat, and I could never remember his real name. And so that's what I just started calling him, and I've been calling him that ever since. It's memorable.
Cool. I totally get that. Not too good with names myself. My uncle, I get it from him because he works for Pepsi Cola as a local bottler, and so he drove a truck. For years, he drove the truck delivering to the local stores and such, And so he knew all these people across town, but he didn't seem to know any of them's names. So he'd meet somebody in public and say, "Hey, Taco, what's up?" Or "Hey, Bubbler," or, whatever. He'd always have a nickname for everybody. Anyway, why don't you tell us about how you got interested in the CoCo or what your background with the CoCo is, and we'll go from there.
Of course, when the CoCo was originally released, I was a young lad. My parents always had the notion that getting their young boy a computer was a good idea. And so originally they got an Odyssey 2, a Magnavox Odyssey 2, if you're familiar with those. It's a console that had a membrane keyboard on it. And it was billed as something that maybe could sort of be computer-like. And so they bought that. And so I had a lot of fun with the Odyssey. I loved it. I've still got my original Odyssey, and I play with it. But a computer, it was not. It had the worst keyboard on earth, and it was, it's a gaming console.
Sure.
And so they realized that wasn't going to cut it. We used to go to Radio Shack occasionally, and they would see the computers in there, and they thought, okay, we're going to try our hand at this, and they picked up. And also, Dad knew a guy at work. He worked for Appalachian Power at the time, and he knew a guy at work that had a CoCo. And he said, listen, here's what you need to get your kid. You need to get him a color computer, too. And so he got me one. I was real excited. I remember getting it home. I would have been probably 12, something like that at the time. And then the CoCo just sort of sat there for a while because we didn't know what to do with it, I mean, it's hard to explain this to people now, but, I mean, computers were real foreign to a lot of people. We had no idea, what loading software or doing anything was. And so my dad's buddy set us up with some help trying to get us figured out, set us up with cassettes. So we had some stuff. I learned how to load stuff off cassette. And then I had found some friends of mine that had cassettes. So of course, we took and copied the heck out of cassettes. And so I learned early on how to pirate software as well. Because, and to be completely honest with you, I didn't know it was even wrong at the time. I was just like, yeah, cool, free games.
Sure.
My dad's buddy had set us up with a bunch of 5 1/4-inch floppy disks loaded with goodies. I couldn't wait to break into these things. The problem was we didn't have a disk drive. And so one year for Christmas, I'd asked for a disk drive for this thing, and here it came with the interface. I've always told Boat, that was my favorite Christmas gift, more than the computer, was this disk drive, because I had stacks of stuff ready to go on it. And I played the crap out of that thing. And I just loved it. And so I was always hooked. And so I really get into CoCo. CoCo is what I did all my BBS stuff on. I had to modem IB, 300 baud modem, and did all my BBS stuff on there. I used to write reports on it. I used to use of course, I had a CoCo too, so I used to write all my school reports on it and print them out with my Tandy printer. And I used to use the terminal program because you could write in lowercase on the terminal program. So I would write all my stuff on that. I'd be printing out these reports for my middle school in old English font and all this stuff. Everyone was blown away because they were like, "What is this? How did you do this? That way, computer." And then when the CoCo 3 came out, I said, "Listen, we got to get one of these. This is gonna be awesome." We got one. I played with that for a good while, and then eventually I could see the writing on the wall. Even as a kid, I'm like, listen, we need to, if we're going to save up and get something else, this Coke, we're going to sell this thing. And so we ended up selling the whole CoCo 3 and the drive and everything else and getting the Tandy 1000 SL. So we stayed on the Tandy line, and we had a Tandy 1000 SL, and eventually we upgraded to a Tandy 1000 TL. And so that's where my introduction into DOS machines and DeskMate and all that stuff was through Tandy. Sure. And we had a lot of fun on those too, so I've got nothing bad to say about the Tandy line. I mean, I grew up using all their stuff. And the first computer I ever used was a TRS-80 Model 2, which they had at our school. That was, and I'm here recently, I've been reacquainted with that, so I can see one of those on my horizon somewhere down the line too. But, I had a good solid run. I was there pretty much until they went away. And I do remember being sad when we got rid of the CoCo 3, but, at the time, it was a money thing, and so it was what it was.
Sure. Cool. Well, it's good to see you guys getting back into it, and it's good to see you introducing your buddy to it. He seems at least open to something. I don't think he's overwhelmed by the greatness of the games, but he seems at least fair. That's cool.
I'll tell you something about Boat. It's funny because we taped an episode of CoCo Show last night.
Yeah.
John had, and actually John loves the CoCo. He's fallen in love with it big time. We play it. The CoCo SD thing is the best piece of hardware. I love this thing. It changed. Sure. It changed the way I don't tell you guys. And one thing about Boat, and this is what drives him nuts, because we do 4 shows. Well, me and him do 3 shows, but we do a CoCo show. We do a show on the ZX Spectrum from the UK. The majority of our viewers and listeners are from the UK. And we do a 3rd show on the Amiga, which that was the first show we started. We did that one started 6 years ago, I think is what it was. And one of the perennial problems with these other computers is actually getting them to load, getting them to work, getting stuff, because even the Amiga is not compatible with itself half the time. And and I love the Amiga, but I mean, it's a monumental pain in the butt. And I told Boat when we got the CoCo going, because it was sort of Boat's idea to do the show. And I'm like, listen, the one thing you're going to like about this is it's no fuss, and it's not. I mean, it loads as fast as a console. And I have to say, he is fallen in love with it. And last night for Christmas, I bought him a Color Computer 3. And so he's
cool.
Very excited.
Awesome.
He's very excited. He already had he's already picked himself up a CoCo SDC. He's got the joystick adapter, so he's ready to rock and roll on that. So he actually, he told me it's his favorite computer right now. He's an old Atari guy.
Sure.
And so that was his first love was Atari, but he has gotten one over since we started the show. And I've noticed a lot of the guys on our Discord channel and stuff have been picking up CoCo, so hopefully we're bringing some more people into the mix, if anything, because I think the CoCo's, I mean, really, if you look at who is doing content for the Color Computer, and you guys have been right there, and CoCo Talk and that, but I mean, I think it's been grossly underrepresented on the game side to a lot of people who don't realize the incredible offerings that were available in the games arena. I think people just look at it and just dismiss it. And the Spectrum sort of had the same issue, but there are plenty of really good games out there. And I think people have been surprised as to what they've been seeing, including Boat.
Well, that's cool. That's great to hear. So you got the guys on that Spectrum podcast that I've been hearing about, I guess.
Well, we did the Amigos. We've done that one, which is the Amiga podcast for 5 or 6 years. I can't remember. It's been so long. And then we started up a show called ARG Presents, or Amiga Retro Game Presents. Now, me and my brother do that one. And that's a show where we literally spin a wheel, and whatever comes up on the wheel of random computers and consoles, we just pick a couple games and play them every week. So we've covered with the Auric. We've covered the Sam Coop. We've covered every crazy thing you could think of. We just did the Dick Smith System 80, if you've ever heard of that, which is a clone of the TRS-80 from Australia. So that's me and him do that show. We've done the CoCo and the Dragon on there, and then we also do the ZX Spectrum show. Me and Boat do that one, where we just play some stuff play a game on the Spectrum every week. We're still learning the Spectrum. It's a unique system as well. I would say it's sort of on par. I mean, it's not on par with the CoCo 3, but it's sort of in the same ballpark. I don't know if you've used them or not. If any of y'all have used those.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
We're strictly games guys when it comes to, I know just enough to be dangerous, and Boat knows even less than that.
Yeah, we try to cover a variety of things, and I'm a computer engineer by profession, and I like the technical details, so I do go into some of that here. And but I've written a game or two for the CoCo, and Neil, who's not here, he normally covers our gaming stuff. He does a review every month or whatever. So it's a shame he couldn't be here, but he's got real world commitments today. But no, it's good to see. Like you said, all of a sudden, about the time you guys popped up, I saw some CoCo content on a couple of other sites or whatever that just all of a sudden it's like everybody found their CoCo in the closet at the same time or something.
It is weird. Some of my friends run a show called Pixel Gaiden, which it's a sort of a retro show that also has sort of a modern slant. And around about the time that we started the CoCo show, those guys also picked themselves up color computers, and they talk about it quite a bit on that show too. I'll tell you something, from doing this for a while, being in the kind of games arena, retro gaming arena, it does seem to come in kind of a wave of people discovering things, especially in America, where over here it was Nintendo, it was Genesis and Sega. And that's pretty much where everyone sort of graduated from their early computers onto the consoles. And so they sort of missed out on a lot of the content that they got in Europe and in, or in Australia. And so I think, and the CoCo also sort of got lost in the wash there in terms of games. When the Nintendo came out, they sort of dominated the market. And I think people are starting to realize that, hey, wait a minute, there's some quality titles here, or it's just fun to mess with. On top of that, I knew about you guys for a long time, listening to a bunch of your shows, because the CoCo content, there wasn't a ton of it. So I was like, man, these guys are doing, I'm going to listen to them. I think people know that there's a ready-made, friendly community of incredibly intelligent people there to help them. That goes a long way when you're trying to, I'm telling you right now, when me and my brother were trying to figure out how to use an Auric, or trying to figure out how to use just some obscure French computer, you're screwed. You got no.
Yeah.
We're doing the Epoch. We're doing the Epoch Super Cassette Vision this week. Like, good luck finding that community. They're not there. They didn't build a large community for the Epoch over Japan.
Oh yeah.
And everyone in our good buddy Curtis, boy, I'm sure you guys know him.
Oh yeah.
He has really helped us out a ton. And helped us down the path and give me advice on how to. I've upgraded my CoCo 3 a bunch of times since I got it, and he's kind of said, here's what you need, and here's what you need to do here. So that's helped a lot. So I think it's a lot more friendly to someone coming in from the outside. So I suspect that there will be a lot of interest in the coming couple years in the CoCo, because it's getting discovered in the same way that the Spectrum was rediscovered, or the Atari 8-bits never sort of went away, but there's been an upswing in that.
Right.
D64 is getting a huge girth of new fan-made stuff, so it's another system that's on the rise. So it's a good thing. It's a fun time to be in retro gaming, that's for sure.
Cool. Well, hopefully, like you say, it'll continue to grow. We like to think we've contributed to the growth over the past 5 years or so, and
absolutely.
We've got a couple of real-life shows or meetups every year that we try to herd people to. Got, of course, CoCo Fest in the Chicago area, and it's usually in the spring around mid-April or whatever. And, of course, we've got kind of our own homegrown, somewhat. We're involved here with the planning of the Tandy Assembly, along with the guys from the Trash Talk podcast. And so we do Tandy Assembly in Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. It's been for the past few years.
Oh, you're not too far from me out there.
Love to see you.
You should definitely come.
I've been through there a couple times. Sure.
Cool. But yeah, it's always good to have more people show up and support the events, and bring their own projects or talk about stuff or bring their wallets. All of that's good. Definitely good to have the community expanded and have different outlets for people. And we try to cover a lot of stuff on this show. It probably means some of the stuff we don't cover very well. Neil does gaming reviews or whatever, but we're not a gaming show, and some people have more gaming taste. It's good to see other shows kind of take up that piece of the action or whatever to kind of cover that interest at a deeper level. It's good to see. And so I like the way you do your shows. You've been picking 2 games every show and kind of walking through those, and a lot of detail, really. You guys, you don't just describe the show and then move on to the next thing, or get pretty deep into the gameplay and whatever. And I really like that. It's good to see that. I hope.
Thank you. We try to get in. It's sometimes you go in to it, like we covered buzzard bait, which I'm sure you're all familiar with last night. And I thought to myself, because usually what we do is we have our supporters pick a game, and then we'll pick a game. That way, we have 2 games. Mm-hmm. And Boat called me up one morning at like 6 a.m. because, listen, we got to pick something to cover. And I was half out of it. I just said, well, buzzard bait. And, well, on the surface, I was like, man, this might be tough to talk about for 15 minutes because it's what it is a clone of Joust. It's a good clone. Mm-hmm. But it is fun to dig into these things because you guys may know this again. You guys are tuned in a lot more than I am, but it turns out that the fellows that did buzzard bait, which I was surprised to read, they did the Joust clone on the Atari ST 4 years later. So they actually went from making a clone on the CoCo to actually being employed to make the actual game on the Atari ST. I like that kind of stuff. It's just something kind of wacky that you can dig through and find. And it's neat to look at some of these authors who went on to do different stuff, on other platforms that you may have heard of, may or may not heard of. So there's been a nice, everything we've picked so far, we've been lucky, I think. For one thing, we've had really good games to look at. But it's also nice when there's a little backstory in there that is something you probably wouldn't know normally. So I learn a lot doing it.
Yeah, cool.
But, now, when it comes to your guys, listen, I've caught many a CoCo Crew show over the years. You guys are so smart and so tuned in, and so I learned so much on the hardware level and stuff. I mean, that's unbelievable. You guys, and I've noticed that the CoCo community as a whole they're well beyond. I mean, they're so technically sound. You guys all know your stuff so well. It's remarkable. And of course, this is years, I'm assuming, of honing in on the hardware. For all that time. So it's great for someone like myself that's coming in. Like I said, I know just enough to be dangerous. You're talking to the guy that had, when I was a kid, we had the disk drive controller in the cartridge slot. And we also had the speech pack. Well, we didn't have one of the multi-slot card things, so I would just load the game up on the disk drive, pop that sucker out, jam in the just let it lock up.
Wow.
4 or 5 tries, it would work. And I'd play F-16 or whatever, F-19, whatever it was, and it would work. I'd get my talking. That's not good.
You were lucky.
That's cool. Yeah, I agree with the observation. We do have a lot of people that have some technical background or whatever. I kind of attribute that to the Radio Shack connection. A lot of people, either they or their dads or whoever, spend a lot of time in there picking up their ham radio gear or CB radio gear and tinkering with the stuff. A lot of people know how to use a soldering iron, at least. So
I think you're probably right. I never got into ham, but I did go to ham. They used to have a huge ham fest in Dayton, Ohio. That we go to every year, and it eventually became a computer fest up there. until they eventually, until those things went away. So I got a little bit of exposure to all the hand people, and what I missed those days of there were a lot more hands-on do-it-yourself action back then. Now it's so computers have changed so much. When back in the day you had to have a brain to know how to do anything, and now anybody with no brain can do everything. So me and my old geek buddies always lament on the time where you had to know how to use DOS commands and had to know how to set IRQs and stuff like that. But
sure.
It's for the best.
Yeah.
Only old guys can get that anyway. No, they're the only ones that would lament for that sort of thing.
Definitely.
Given that you guys are reviewing games, and I think that, like John said, that's a cool area to focus on. Have you looked at, I know you've been reviewing sort of the older games, but have you looked at sort of the newish games that have come out in the last 4 or 5 years, especially things like Donkey Kong, that have been rewritten to take advantage of the Color Computer 3 in a way that hadn't been done 25, 30 years ago? And what is your general impression of those types of games?
It's funny you should ask that because, I just got in, I just ordered the processor update for my CoCo 3, added the extended memory, and the first thing I loaded up was the Donkey Kong remix. Because I remember when this came out, and I wasn't into the CoCo at the time. And I'd heard about this and read it, and I looked at the video, and I'm like, this can't even be real. I couldn't believe it. And so when I finished the update and made sure everything worked, the first thing I loaded up was the Donkey Kong remix. And not only am I blown away, it's just incredible. It's an incredible feat. The fact that the fact that they've went in and mixed up the levels and stuff. I own a Donkey Kong arcade machine. I've got an arcade in I've got a building out back that's got some arcade games, and Donkey Kong is my all-time favorite game. So I've got a pretty intimate knowledge of it. And to see that on the CoCo, I can't tell y'all how incredibly stunning it is that it can do it. I mean, it blows my mind, and it's tremendous. I have looked at some newer stuff. I think it was called Xeneon. I've looked at that. Crystal City. These are newish, I think. I played. Curtis sent me a demo of a game that just came out. It's called. I mean, I don't think it's out, but the demo's out. It's something. It reminded me of Downlands. It was something 3, Digger 3.
Oh yeah.
Is that right? And that's outstanding. I just love that sort of stuff. So I have only just this week got my CoCo back up and ready to go. But yes, I'll be definitely checking out some new stuff, and we're actually I'm sure we'll end up looking at some new stuff too. It makes me happy that the CoCo is getting cool new stuff. I just love it. I was out of it for so long. When we started the Amiga podcast, the Amiga had this and continues to have this incredible growth of new hardware to use on the old machine, right? Plus, they have new hardware to make a new Amiga effectively, and it's awesome, but it's incredibly expensive, and it sort of splinters the fan base. There's a lot of turmoil, right? And
Yep.
I don't like that, and Boat doesn't either, because it's sort of silly. And the one thing, and so coming over to the CoCo, where you've got new hardware that's affordable, it works, it's maintained, it's brilliantly done, and then having new software to go along with it, it's very refreshing. I have to say, there's something to be said for just everyone, and you guys know a lot more about the inner workings of the community and stuff, but everyone's been super duper nice to us. Because I told Boat, the one thing I worried about was, I don't want people to think that we're just doing system of the week, rehash, here's our show format with another machine. I hate that. It's my one concern about it, because we're just two guys in a basement that play games. That's all we are. We're not special. Boat's a middle school band director. I work for the Kentucky State Police. We're just two schmoes that we just happen to both love a bunch of old stuff. I've got a Mac beside me and an old Atari, Amigas. I got all kinds of crap right here, old PC. And we dabble in it. But for us to go in and do something on the channel for a machine, we really want to. We don't want to look like some guys that just kind of are ham and egging it. And I told Boat, because Boat suggested things over the year, and I was like, listen, if we ever do another show, it's going to have to be the color computer, because I have a passion for it from when I was a child. When we got back into it, I feel like we came in at a good time, and you guys could probably speak on that more than I could, but it just seems like I like the software that's coming out, the hardware is great, and it's so easy to use and so much fun. And that's the name of the game, because we both promised ourselves when we started doing these shows, if they stop being fun, we're done, And so this has been quite a revigorating. I was sitting here playing Cash Man when I got hooked up with you. I have this thing on all the time because it's quick and it's fun, and I like the kind of games you play on it. I'm not a real deep gamer. I like sort of twitchy kind of stuff, and that's what the CoCo has in spades. So, but the new stuff looks great. Finish that. Long story short.
It's never a bad time to get into the CoCo.
That's true.
But it's great, and it has to be a lot of fun to be bringing someone into it like Boat that wasn't exposed to it before. It's got to be pretty rewarding.
It is a lot of fun, and it's in all honesty, fellas. When we do the Amiga or the Spectrum shows, I didn't grow up with those machines. I grew up. We were a Tandy house, and we had CoCos and Tandys. And so this is the first show we've done where I experienced genuine nostalgia. And when we just covered Cash Man a couple episodes ago, and I'd forgotten about Cash Man. And so when they picked it, I was like, well, let's try this out. And I instantly remembered it. It was a glorious feeling to remember something like that from my childhood. It's a new experience on the show for me. To share it with Boat, yeah, it's been great. And he has, I can tell you, with all sincerity, he has flipped his lid. Like I said, when I gave him that new machine last night, he was so happy. And I suspect there will be a girth of video content coming from John in the next couple of weeks as he goes through the extensive CoCo library to play stuff.
Very exciting. Like you say, it's always a good time to get into CoCo. I'm definitely glad to have you guys as part of the community and have you demonstrating the gaming side in a venue that people seem to be enjoying. So that's good. And I hope we can get you guys to consider coming out to CoCo Fest or Tandy Assembly. And hopefully if you do, you can be so excited you'll want all your viewership to join you. It's one of those things where the truest reminder that the hobby is not so much about being in the basement by yourself. It's actually about other people. You can make some really good friendships and good relationships, and sometimes it's just cool to be around other people with the same weird hobby that you have.
And I talked to Boat about it. Boat's going to Amiga Ireland in January. He's emceeing the event out there.
Oh, wow.
And I said, listen, if you can go up to Ireland, surely we can get in a car and go to Chicago. So we may, I think I will go, and possibly the Boat. It depends on his schedule. I would try to get him to come up here with me. So, we're hoping to come up. But yeah, hey, listen, thanks for having us on, and we appreciate you guys, what you do, and of course, keep on doing it, because like I said, you guys are, I listen, you guys are actually the first thing I heard when I started getting back into it. And so when you sent me a message asking me to come on, I was real excited. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely glad to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate you showing up.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I think we'll draw this little segment to a close, and then we'll be back with the rest of the show.
Meet Dr. Bjorn Vittore, one of 3,300 scientists who work on ATLAS, analyzing data from the Large Hadron Collider.
We are truly on the brink of discovering the elusive God particle, the particle that gives all other particles mass.
When Dr. Vittore needs to crunch numbers quickly, there's only one tool he turns to.
I first encountered Dynacalcs when I was at Fermilab in 1984. Our primary field was a Hazelwood Helix running OS9. It looked like a giant power supply with a small 6809 board attached. But the operating system was way ahead of its time. Very powerful. We were provided load versus displacement data and used the Dynacalc to determine hysteresis at different positions of coil actuators. Dynacalc handles the calculations where the previous Apple II running VisiCalc simply lacked memory to complete the task.
Dynacalc is easy to use, easy to afford, yet sophisticated enough to meet the most demanding requirements.
I still keep a CoCo 3 in my office with Dynacalc, just a press of the clear key away. It's an invaluable tool that allows me to enter data and equations quickly.
Whether you're performing basic accounting, solving engineering problems, or even searching for the Higgs boson, Dynacalc is up to the task.
Dynacalc allows me to perform complex work in a straightforward manner. I wouldn't use any other spreadsheet.
Powerful, simple, Dynacalc.
Okay, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. I wish we had all 5 hosts here tonight, but it just can't be helped tonight. But we do want to have a little discussion. It is the end of the year, so rather than just something random or whatever, we want to kind of talk a little bit about the hobby. We want to cover some of why we're still in the hobby, what we're still doing with the hobby, why we're still doing the podcast. But also people that are aware of actual part of the bigger community may be aware of some, strife that has affected us the past, say, 6 months or so, maybe it's almost 8 months now, I guess, since around CoCo Fest. Thought it might be time to address some of that. We've mostly tried to skip by it on the podcast, maybe a few random comments here or there. It is the end of the year. It's time to take stock a little bit of things and what we've been doing and why we've been doing it and how we feel about the world, that sort of thing. So let me start off. For me, I hate to say it, I think this may have been the least satisfying year of the hobby that I've ever had. Mostly because the hosts altogether in a host discussion expressed some opinions about doing your own thing when you do a project. And then we had another host expand on that with a article that went into vintage is the new old. And they got misrepresented, and based on the misrepresentation, people got their tempers flared up, and there was out of hand recriminations and misunderstandings turned into, I don't know, we had another show that spent a couple of hours basically talking trash and spreading misinformation about what had been said, misinterpretations, whatever. I made a video about this back around June, hoping that people would take the video and see, hey, they'd kind of crossed the line. But instead it seemed to, if anything, reinvigorate them. And since then, there's just been kind of an endless stream of pettiness and just a lot of strife, a lot of negativity. I've been subject to really negative treatment over on the Discord server. I don't know. It's been rough. I'm tired of it. It hurts my feelings. It takes away some of the joy from the hobby, having to deal with this kind of stuff. I don't want it to continue, and maybe I hope that this doesn't lead to it continuing further. I'm hoping this is more of a clear the air kind of thing. But it is the end of the year. It's kind of, if you're a believer in Festivus, consider this the airing of grievances. We can have our feats of strength around the metal pole later. It's been a rough year, especially the last 6 to 8 months. It's been a joy stealing, really taking a lot of joy out of the hobby. I mean, I can still do things on my own, still have fun. I have the core group of people I can share things with and enjoy, but now there's this other group that's out in the public that you kind of have to tiptoe around them because they take things a bit out of context, made a huge deal out of the term turkey being applied to something they did. It's a lot of hypersensitivity. I don't know. I hope we can get past it in the new year. I don't really want to address it anymore. I may regret having addressed it here. So, which leads me into what do we love about the CoCo, and what do I love about it? What am I still doing here? So I love about the CoCo, not only the nostalgia, having been my first computer and whatever, but I really feel like there was always more to it than I could understand back in the day. as I grew to where I could understand more, getting educated in college and whatnot, it built a greater appreciation for what came before, which kind of led me more into the retro kind of hobby and wanting to research things or whatever. And being able to uncover stuff like that and then, hack around with the CoCo or the MC10 or the Microchroma 68, it just really tickles my brain, really makes me feel, a little bit more in touch with those giants that went before. Or maybe they weren't giants, but they were pioneers. And so that little joy that I get out of being able to, it's almost like a time machine. That little bit of joy I get by being able to ride my time machine back to 1980 and use my brain on some of this stuff. That's why I'm still here, and I hope there's other people out there that still have some of that feeling. I know there are. I see some of them responding to things that get posted on Facebook or elsewhere, the mailing list, that sort of thing. I know you're out there. I know not all of you are really upset about being called a turkey or whatever. Hopefully some of you still have the capability of giving this random voice on the internet the benefit of the doubt when you think you're not quite sure what was said or how it was meant. Hopefully there's more of you still out there.
Well, I can say I'm still here. The CoCo was my first machine, so regardless of what goes on in the community, I'm always going to like that machine the most. But the main reason why I'm here in the hobby is that for me it's more of an educational thing. I've been learning a lot of stuff, doing different projects, and it's just just fun learning new things, stuff I didn't know before. Plus it cures the winter blues,
It does that. Yeah.
Just a good pastime. It's a good hobby.
Well, I know that you've expressed to me that you've had some of the same feelings about certain people or groups, their reactions to the way things have been.
Yeah.
Kind of taking some of the joy out of it. How's that affected you? How does it make you feel?
Well, it's definitely taken a lot of joy out of the hobby, that's for sure. I've been kind of, I'm sure a lot of people know it, keeping it myself, not really posting much stuff because, you just never know when you're going to get attacked. That's not fun. I don't know. I think people should just, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. Kind of keep it at that, right?
You've been the victim of kind of random attacks over a couple of things I know.
Oh yeah.
You were accused of hacking or copying someone's software, just by doing what everybody else is doing and posting about, and then accused of doing something terrible by publishing a cartridge with a certain game on it.
Yeah.
Which, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to approve of it.
Exactly.
You could maybe not be quite so vile about attacking people. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want this to be a big boohoo party or anything like that because I'm not unhappy. Our numbers are great. We've got great ratings, lots of downloads. And when you do post about a project, 80 or 90, 95% of the feedback is positive. It's just a shame some of that. And it is the internet, right? So if you're only getting 5% negative, you're probably winning. I would like to think that the community could do a little better than that, at least for some of us trying to entertain you. Well, what about you, Mike? You got any thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, it's kind of been a rough year. It's been a rough year for me personally too. So that doesn't help things. It's unfortunate that some people can't disagree with an opinion without being disagreeable. But there's been downright name calling and mockery.
Yeah. Well.
So it's just kind of, I had my own little foray on Facebook and.
Oh yeah.
Really probably should have stood my ground, but the onslaught of people was just too much that I just apologized to get out. I did, because, but I've never been fond of Facebook. I'm even less fond of it now. I pretty much avoid it because it's just, it's like being in a high school locker room or something. it just doesn't appeal to me. I mean, we've got story links to it, and I go to it for that, so I'm still on there, but I pretty much don't monitor it because it's not pleasant for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there screaming at the podcast, if they're still listening, about me and saying, "Oh, well, what about John? He makes jokes about people and calls them turkeys and stuff like that." And it's like, you know, it's one of those where sometimes it's funny how people who when you don't get their jokes, then you have no sense of humor. But if they don't get your jokes, then you're just a jerk, right? And so definitely there's an impedance mismatch between senses of humor with certain parts of the community out there. Let's just say listening to the different shows will reveal that there's different kinds of humor at play. It's clear. I mean, I'm not trying to say that I or we are just totally victims. It's clear that there's been some negativity in the community. I think there's some misunderstandings. I think there's been an unwillingness to give the benefit of the doubt that I think in some cases has gone beyond the pale. I just hope we can get better because I'm here, you guys are here. We're here to have fun. We're on the podcast or whatever, trying to help other people out and have fun and expand the community. In so doing, making ourselves the target of people who are part of the expanded community who somehow think that because we don't see things the way they do, that we're somehow now bad guys. That's kind of ridiculous. I really do think that should stop. I hope that's not happening to anybody else. If it is, I'm not sure what we can do about it, but if you think we can, let us know. It is the end of the year. Not a bad time to be a CoCo person. A lot of good hardware coming out. A lot of good software coming out, I think. Hoping to have some software coming from me before too long. Like I said, when I have my end-of-year holiday, I'm hoping to use some of that for some, at least for some basic, not basic, well, maybe basic language, but for a little bit of software development. I have a few ideas for some hardware involved. Some of it might even break some of the, don't produce the same stuff that other people are producing rules. But since we know that that's that no one else in the community seems to think that's important, maybe we shouldn't think it's too important either. But I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a good time. We've got some stuff coming, or at least I hope it's coming. I'm pretty excited right now about the Microchroma 68 stuff, just because I feel like it's opened up another little venue for creativity that I can play with. I actually have two of the machines, the one I built and then another one that I acquired. I'm not sure there's more than about another 5 in the whole world at this point. So if you do have a Microchroma 68, let me know, especially if you've never told me about it. And if you've written any cool software for it, I definitely want to know about that. 2020 is coming. Trump has just been impeached by the House. I don't want to bring much politics into this, but that's bound to be exciting for some people, invigorating in the opposite direction for some other people. We got another year of political campaigning in the United States. So if you want to fight about something, let's at least fight about politics and not about CoCos. Okay.
Let's throw religion in there too.
Yeah. Right. Oh man. If you're in the UK, we could have a good old Remain/Leave debate. That's bound to be better than all this damn CoCo fighting. We can debate, we can have a Jeremy Corbyn versus Boris Johnson beauty contest. Whatever you into. But I am tired of the pettiness. Pictures of me being posted on Discord with comments about my eyelashes. That's ridiculous. I mean, that is just ridiculous right there. I've had my say. That's my thoughts for the end of the year. I will say, again, CoCo forever. I love the machine. I love the hobby. I love most of the people. Let's be happy. Let's be friends. Let's have respect for one another. I've put in a bunch of time making hours and hours and hours of podcast content along with Neil and Mike and others. How about you give us the benefit of the doubt? That's my big request for the year. Any other final words?
I didn't get to talk about what I like about the CoCo.
Oh, good. Go.
So, the CoCo to me is still the ultimate learning machine. It's the nostalgia, of course, because I had one. It wasn't my first computer, but it was probably the first computer that had a disk drive and had color. So that stuck with me, and I learned a lot using OS 9, and it's still a great machine to. That's kind of why I stick with it. As I want to learn everything that I didn't know, and there's a mountain of that still. So right. I like most of the people. I like, and what I'm looking forward to this year, I'm looking forward to CoCo Fest, and I'm looking forward to Tandy Assembly. And if I squeeze another, those are the two main ones that I'm going to hit every year. If I can squeeze in some other shows, so much the better. I enjoy making the podcast and putting it out each month, so it keeps the community connected and alive. And if that's a small thing that I can contribute to the community, then I've accomplished something.
Yep, definitely.
That's a good feeling.
Definitely. Well, I think it's a good, worthwhile thing to do. And I think a lot of other people in the community appreciate it and think it's worthwhile. There's a few people whose their vitriol and negativity has gotten them to where they refer to us by the initials of the old Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but, the people that are the problems really are what I've referred to as the usual suspects. And why are they called that? Because they're usually the problem, and they have been for a long time. I don't know if that makes me wrong. I don't want to be right. How's that?
If you don't like us, if you don't like the show, well, just don't listen. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to do that.
And we'll be happy to send you a refund for all money you've deposited.
That's right.
Since I couldn't make it for the group discussion, I was asked to record my 2019 CoCo Year in Review. 2019 was a year of growth. First, growth in numbers as evidenced by new members joining online forums and attending events like CoCo Fest. More people are entering the CoCo hobby, and that bodes well for the future of the machine. Second, there was growth in the offerings available, both in hardware and software. This is evidence of a thriving CoCo ecosystem, one which guarantees that we continue to enjoy the machine for years to come. 2019 was also a year of controversy. People took different positions on the topic of making and selling competing products, which were similar if not exact replicas. This caused some consternation and choosing of sides. Some of these tensions spilled over into the CoCo Fest, online forums, and even CoCo-oriented shows and podcasts. Some of that tension lingers unresolved even to this day. It's not clear to me how I will participate in the wider CoCo community in 2020. Ongoing commitments related to business and educational endeavors have taken a front seat for me. But rest assured that I will always have a CoCo nearby, and I will continue to support the machine that laid the foundation for my success. In closing, I would like to end with some guidance. Work on projects you enjoy. If you want, share that work with others or keep it to yourself. It's your choice. But always be mindful of the work and efforts of others and respect their contributions. Add value to the hobby by bringing something new to the table. And in the end, don't let anyone steal your CoCo joy. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Okay, why don't we cut this and we'll be back.
Learn how to use your computer for more than just games with Hot CoCo Magazine. Hot CoCo is packed with business application programs, home management help, programming tips and tutorials, product reviews, and more. Subscribe for just $24.97 for 12 issues. That's 30% off the newsstand price. Let Hot CoCo show you how much time you can save with your color computer. And save even more time with Instant CoCo, the cassette version of Hot CoCo Magazine, containing all of the programs that appear in the issue. See the latest issue of Hot CoCo Magazine for details. Hot CoCo, available at fine retailers everywhere.
There's no place I'd rather be right now than right here with you, listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 55, the last podcast episode of the year. This month I'm going to review a little Canadian content. The game is called Color Car Action. It was coded back in 1984 by a fellow Canadian named Dave Dyes. It was published by Novasoft. This was about a year before Dave Dyes started his own company called Diecom products, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. I was always a big fan of this game back in the day, and I still am today. It requires a CoCo 1, 2, or 3 with 64K of memory and a joystick. For 1984, it was very advanced for the time and offered arcade quality and utilizing a CoCo 1 or 2 with full 64K memory requirement. If this game looks familiar to you, well, that's because it probably is. Color Car Action is a clone of the arcade game called Bump and Jump, and a very well done clone at that. The object of the game is to race against other vehicles. You can run people off the track or into rocks, and they can do the same to you as well. There's also one other element to the game. If you're going 62 miles per hour or more, now don't ask me where they got 62 miles per hour. I mean, couldn't it have been 60? Anyways, and if you reach the speed and you hit the joystick button, your car will jump high into the air, allowing you to jump over other cars, rocks, or water. Once landed though, you will immediately slow down a fair amount. Another twist to this game is you will be rewarded a 50,000 point bonus if you finish a track without killing anyone else. It sounds easy, but it's not. There are also a lot of hidden objects along the way, and the tracks get challenging where you have to jump over water and different objects. The gameplay is top-notch, and the graphics are fantastic and smooth with vertical scrolling on each track. There are also plenty of different tracks to race on. Also to note, this is one of the games that has recently been enhanced by L. Curtis Boyle to take advantage of the 6309 processor. So if one of your CoCos has been upgraded with a 6309 CPU, look for a copy of this game on the Color Computer Archives website. Well, there you have it, another super fun game to play on your CoCo. Speaking of which, I know I'll be getting a lot of CoCo time in during the upcoming holidays. I can't wait. Until next year, I can say that now. Happy CoCoing and game on.
P Clear Records is proud to bring you newly discovered CoCo Christmas hits from the Damp Basement archives. Here is just a sample.
I'm dreaming of a white CoCo. So happy to be on my CoCo 3, typing in a basic program. Buy yourself a multi-pack this Christmas. All I want for Christmas is a CoCo 3, a CoCo 3, a CoCo 3. CoCo sitting with a multi-pack.
These songs and two more were discovered on molded cassettes. Originally recorded on a CCR81 cassette recorder, these songs have been copied directly to a CCR83 and are now available to the public on cassette for just $8.99. That's right, just $8.99. Order now to make your CoCo Christmas complete. To get your cassette of CoCo Christmas, send $8.99 by check or money order to P Clear Records, CoCo Christmas Offer 3Z9, Elm Tree, Ontario, Canada.
Well, we have reached the end of episode 55 and the end of 2019. Big thanks goes to our host, John Linville, for procuring all the news articles you hear each month, and to Mike Rowan for creating the ever-so-amazing commercials and editing the podcast. Believe me, it is not fun or easy editing a podcast. I'd also like to thank Aaron Doughty for giving us some of your time to record an interview with you. Sorry I couldn't make it for that one. I really wanted to be a part of it, but I do like the work you're doing on CoCo Show. Last but not least, we'd like to thank all of you who listen and support us each month, and we really do appreciate your feedback. Happy holidays from all of us here at CoCo Crew, and best wishes for the new year. We hope it's filled with retro CoCo goodness.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway?
It's a blast from the past.